Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Uh, Remember a few months back, kind of felt like the AI hype train might be, well, hitting the brakes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There was that moment, wasn't there?
This company, DeepSeek, they suddenly appeared claiming they could train these big AI models, on par with
Yeah.
OpenAI, Google, but for just $6 million. dollars.
A tiny fraction of what we were hearing, yeah.
Exactly. And supposedly without needing all those top-tier NVIDIA chips everyone was scrambling for.
hmm
And the market, it definitely reacted. NVIDIA's value plummeted, what was it, almost $600 billion dollars down in one day.
A huge drop. It really felt like maybe things were shifting fundamentally.
But what's fascinating, like you said, is how resilient things have been since then. That initial shock to NVIDIA stock, yeah, it was big, no doubt.
But the recovery was pretty swift, wasn't it?
It really was. It kind of underscores this underlying belief in the long-term story of AI. Suggests that even with new players, maybe new efficiencies, the fundamental demand, it's not going anywhere.
Right. It's like that initial panic faded and the bigger picture reasserted itself.
Exactly. Michael Seidenberg over at Alliance Technology Trust, he called AI a secular theme.
Yeah.
And that phrase really sticks,
It does. It implies something much bigger than just a trend.
Yeah, this isn't some fleeting fad. It feels like a basic, decades-long shift that's just going to require steady, pretty substantial investment.
Consistent spending, yeah.
So that's kind of our mission for this deep dive,
Yeah.
to really get into this this new chapter of the AI story. How's it different from that first, explosion of interest?
And where are the interesting spots now? Where might the next wave of innovation and, investment be focused?
Right. We dug through some pretty sharp analysis from, financial experts, tech industry watchers,
Yep.
trying to piece it all together.
So if you think about that bigger picture, that first wave, it felt very much about the basics, right? The picks and shovels.
There's an infrastructure, yeah.
The powerful chips, the massive computing power needed just to make AI possible. DeepSeek showing up, whatever the actual details of their tech, it definitely sparked a key conversation. Could we get similar AI results without relying quite so heavily on the most advanced, obviously most expensive hardware?
Yeah, that one question really poked at some core ideas about the economics of AI, didn't it?
It really did.
So DeepSeek, their big thing was supposedly in inferencing. That part where the AI takes what it learned during training and actually applies it to new stuff.
Applying the knowledge.
Right. And the surprising bit was them saying they could do it without those top-end NVIDIA GPUs, the ones everyone wants.
Which are, of course, subject to export controls to China.
Exactly. And the U.S. Department of Commerce is apparently still taking a look at whether that claim actually holds water, given those restrictions.
But this whole focus on efficiency that DeepSeek kind of pushed into the spotlight, it ties into a bigger thing we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
The cost of actually building and using AI, it's coming down. Whether DeepSeek's specific numbers are spot on or not, Nick Dumas-Williams from Polar Capital makes a good point. Technology tends to get cheaper over time. It's deflationary.
Right.
And ultimately, that's good for the whole industry, isn't it? Lower costs mean more people can use it, wider adoption across different businesses.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because even if the cost to create AI gets easier, that doesn't necessarily mean the big guys providing the core tech are suddenly in trouble.
Yeah, not at all.
Dumas-Williams argues, pretty convincingly, I think, that even if NVIDIA maybe can't charge quite the same premium per chip eventually, the sheer volume, the explosion in AI applications being built and used everywhere, that should more than make up for it.
It's the cloud computing analogy, right? The cost per unit of computing has plummeted.
But the total amount spent has just gone through the roof.
Exactly. And you can't ignore NVIDIA's position right now. Daniel Ives at Wedbush, pretty blunt about it. He says they're leading the AI industry, period.
Undisputed leader, yeah.
And the demand for their newest chips, the Blackwell series, apparently it's just huge. Way more demand than supply right now.
So even if other bits of the process get cheaper, you still need that raw power, right? For training these massive models, for running them, that need isn't just vanishing.
Not anytime soon, it seems.
Absolutely. And the money involved.
Yeah.
It's just staggering. Wedbush had that forecast back in February, remember? The Magnificent Seven tech giants boosting their AI spending.
From $100 billion to, what was it, $325 billion?
Yeah, $325 billion just this year. Now, okay, that was before Maybe some recent tariff issues popped up, but like Dumas Williams said, AI is still seen as the project with the highest potential ROI.
The best place to put your money right now, basically.
Pretty much. Plus, you've got the next generations of NVIDIA chips coming down the pipe. Rubin, Feynman, promising even more power.
And that core idea of AI scaling laws still holds, right? Basically, throw more computing power at it.
And generally, you get better AI performance. It's been the driving force. More power, better results. That demand cycle seems pretty intact.
And what's also quite telling, I think, is NVIDIA pushing into the PC market. Jensen Huang, their CEO, he clearly sees AI reshaping the whole personal computer experience.
Right, like AI built into your laptop from the ground up.
Exactly. If the economics make sense there, we could see a really radical change in how we all use our computers day to day. That creates a whole new layer of demand.
Okay, so bottom line on the chip side, the foundational tech companies, especially NVIDIA, they're still absolutely central. Maybe the rate of that crazy growth adjusts, but they're key.
Yeah, the narrative isn't NVIDIA's over, it's more nuanced.
Right. The main story seems to be shifting, though. Act 2 feels less about just building the roads and bridges and more about how businesses are actually using the AI.
Definitely. A big surge in companies adopting it, really focused on boosting productivity, cutting costs.
Yeah, we're starting to see some really concrete examples now, aren't we?
We are. Klarna, for example. Reportedly, they ditched their Salesforce subscription, built their own internal AI systems instead.
And save something like $40 million a year after cutting back on contractors.
That's the report. And then you hear about Shopify, where managers apparently have to justify not using AI before they can hire a new person for a task.
Wow. So it's not just talk anymore. Companies are actively putting AI to work to affect the bottom line. Real impact.
Very real. And the AI itself is getting smarter, more capable. We're moving past just, generating text or images towards what they call agentic AI models. Systems that can actually make decisions, carry out complex steps on their own.
That sounds like a pretty big leap in what they can actually do.
It is, and DeepSeek actually played a part in speeding this up through this process called distillation.
Distillation. Okay, how does that work?
Well, think of it like a master chef teaching an apprentice. The apprentice, that's the smaller, more specialized AI model, learns the key skills and, the flavors or capabilities from the master chef.
The big, powerful foundation model like Meta's Llama or something.
Exactly. The smaller model learns much faster and cheaper than trying to figure everything out from scratch.
Okay, so it makes creating specialized AI easier.
Yes, but here's the crucial part. That distillation process, it still needs the powerful teacher model.
Ah, okay. So you still need the big, expensive-to-train models at the top.
Precisely. Which in turn keeps driving demand for lots of computing power.
So even DeepSeek's approach, while maybe promoting efficiency, reinforces the need for that high-end computational power.
Interesting.
It does. And this leads nicely into the idea that we might see a new set of winners emerging in this next phase of the AI boom.
Right. Not just the chip guys.
Anthony Ginsberg from Gins Global Index Funds, he uses that cloud computing analogy again. First, you had the infrastructure builders, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud.
The foundations.
Then came the explosion of software as a service companies, the SaaS players, building on top of that infrastructure.
Like Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow.
Exactly. But there's a really important warning in that analogy, too.
Oh, that's that. Just sticking AI onto your existing product, that might not be enough to guarantee success long term. Ginsberg points to Salesforce again. They've called themselves AI first for, over a decade?
Yeah, for a long time.
And yet now they're potentially facing disruption themselves. It suggests that the next winners need something more than just, bolting on some AI features.
Okay, so if just having AI isn't enough, what are the key things for these second wave AI companies? What makes them likely to succeed?
Yeah. Well, Michael Seidenberg really hammers home the importance of data. His quote is pretty stark. Better training data means better AI.
Simple, but powerful. The quality of the input dictates the quality of the output.
Exactly. Garbage in, garbage out, amplified. So one strategy is looking at companies that either have or are aggressively acquiring really good, relevant data sets.
Through M&A, maybe? Buying other companies for their data.
Precisely. Seidenberg uses HubSpot as an example. They've bought companies like Frame AI and Clearbit. The idea isn't just getting more data. It's about building what he called a homogeneous data set. Data that's consistent, connected, and that their AI can really sink its teeth into effectively.
So it's not just volume, it's the quality and usability of the data.
Quality and integration, yes.
Okay, what's another angle then? besides just hoarding data?
Another approach is companies that are really smart about embedding AI into products or brands that people already know and like.
Ah, leveraging existing popularity.
Yeah. Ginsberg mentioned the Ray-Ban partnership with Meta. You take a classic popular brand like Ray-Ban sunglasses, and you integrate AI features directly into them. He actually called this the software as a service of AI.
Interesting. So the AI enhances a familiar product, makes the experience better, rather than being a standalone thing.
Exactly. The value is the improved user experience within something you already trust or desire.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about whole industries? Are there sectors that look particularly ripe for AI disruption?
Yeah, if you zoom out, you can look at entire sectors that are just swimming in data but have maybe struggled to use it well historically.
Like healthcare?
Healthcare is a huge one, especially drug discovery. Dumas Williams actually called it the great white hope for AI applications.
The potential seems massive there. We've already seen stuff like DeepMind's AlphaFold, right? Mapping protein structures.
Incredible work. Millions of protein structures mapped, which could unlock treatments for diseases like malaria, Parkinson's, osteoporosis. The potential is just mind-boggling.
There's always a but, isn't there?
Well, Dumas Williams adds a note of caution. Translating those AI discoveries into actual usable treatments in the real world, that's still a big hurdle.
Why is that?
Bioresearch is often quite decentralized, fragmented. Getting from an AI insight to a widely deployed drug is a long, complex, expensive path. It's not straightforward.
Okay, so huge potential, but challenges in actually deploying it at scale.
Exactly. But beyond medicine, think about other data-heavy areas. Robotics, especially autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars.
Tons of sensor data there.
Massive amounts. And finance, too. Think about robo-advisors getting more sophisticated, managing investments based on complex data analysis.
Right, lots of industries with potential.
Definitely.
So given all this shifting landscape, the new opportunities, the potential pitfalls, how should you, the listener, maybe think about navigating this next phase if you're investing?
Well, the consensus seems pretty clear. Trying to pick the specific, single, long-term winners right now, it's incredibly difficult. Maybe impossible.
So diversification is key. Don't put all your eggs in one AI basket.
Exactly. Anthony Ginsberg specifically warns against being too heavily concentrated in just those magnificent 7 tech stocks.
Why is that? They're huge players.
They are, but he argues it gives you a kind of limited view of all the other tech opportunities out there.
Okay, so spread the risk.
Yeah. He points to an ETF, like the Hanjin's Tech Megatrend Equal Weight UCITS ETF, ticker ITEC, on the LSE.
Equal weight, what does that mean in practice?
It means the fund holds roughly the same amount, the same weighting, in each of its 120 or so holdings. These companies span 10 different tech sectors.
So not dominated by Apple or Microsoft or NVIDIA.
Right. It also means it has a lower overall weighting towards the U.S. market compared to, say, a broad tech index that's market cap weighted.
That equal weighting sounds interesting for spreading risk, but there's a flip side, right?
There is. If 1 or 2 of those 120 companies just go absolutely ballistic, their impact on the overall fund's return will be kind of diluted compared to if they had a larger weight.
And they rebalance it regularly.
Yeah.
Every 6 months.
Yeah, which could mean they end up selling some of the shares that have gone up the most, trimming the winners to maintain that equal balance.
So it's a trade-off. Smoother ride maybe, but potentially missing out on some of the really explosive gains from individual stocks.
That's the nature of broad diversification.
Yeah.
The alternative is active management. Funds like the Polar Capital Technology Trust or the Alliance Technology Trust.
Where you're relying on the fund managers to make the calls.
Exactly. You're trusting their expertise to pick the stocks, decide how much to allocate, and crucially to adapt as this AI landscape keeps changing.
Which it definitely seems to be doing.
Absolutely. Dumas Williams really stressed this point in such a fast-moving area. You need to stay engaged, be ready to change your mind, update your thinking as new stuff happens. It requires active decisions.
Okay, so wrapping this all up.
Yeah.
The big takeaway feels like the AI boom isn't over. Not by a long shot.
No, it's just morphing, evolving.
Right. The intense focus on just the foundational chips, while still important with companies like NVIDIA being vital, that's maybe broadening out.
Yeah, the spotlight is shifting towards the application and the clever integration of AI across loads of different industries, how it's actually being used.
Which leaves us with maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah, thinking back to that cloud analogy,
Yeah.
which companies that look like AI leaders today might actually face unexpected challenges or disruption as this tech keeps maturing?
Good question. It's not always the early leaders who win the whole race.
Exactly. And what advantages, beyond just having AI features, will really decide who the true long-term winners are in this next wave? Is it data? Is it brand? Integration? Something else?
It's definitely worth thinking about how these huge shifts might play out in your own industry, your own areas of interest.
Hmm.
Where do you see AI making the biggest impact?